Welcome to Back on the Broomstick,
a modern witch's spoken word grimoire,
where two witchy friends from way back are reconnecting to their pagan roots after a long period of mundanity.
We're rewalking the path of the wise and trying out all the latest spells, rituals, and magical theory in today's witchcraft and pagan practices.
So grab your wand and your incense,
your cauldron and your crystals,
and join us
as we get
Back on the Broomstick.
Hi, and welcome to Back on the Broomstick. I'm Layla.
And I'm Shell.
And today our episode is featuring the lovely Brigit Esselmont, who is the founder of the popular website Biddy Tarot. Brigit is also the author of the Biddy Tarot deck and the books Everyday Tarot, The Ultimate Guide to Tarot Card Meanings, and most recently, Intuitive Manifesting. Welcome to Back on the Broomstick, Brigit.
Welcome.
Hi, Brigit.
Hi, it's great to be here. So good to chat today.
I was really excited about this, Brigit, because I actually came across you, jeepers, it seems like maybe 8 years ago. And, Layla introduced you as an author, but I personally think what you're better known for is your email subscription list and your website. I have been an email subscriber for a good minute. Actually, when I realized that we were going to do this interview, I was like, no way. I've been getting her emails for years. I just got one 2 days ago. So I've been a big fan, and I know a lot of people have relied on the knowledge in the background that you give on your website and you give in your email subscription list. For our listeners out there, if you are not get on Brigit's Biddy Tarot email subscription list, I recommend it. But you talk about different things in your emails. And one thing I wanted to start off with, kind of my first question is, you talk a lot about relying on your intuition. So I wanted to know what your thoughts are on learning tarot, because a lot of people do utilize you for learning tarot. What are your thoughts on learning tarot in the realm of book knowledge versus intuition?
Good question.
I like what you say and I like the meanings you give, but sometimes I put my own twist on your meanings because they're different for me. So what are your thoughts on book knowledge versus intuition?
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you also. I mean, it's so awesome that you've been with us for like nearly 8 years and following along.
It's been a good minute.
It's amazing. So thank you for your support. So, like when it comes to interpreting tarot cards, yes, this is the thing. It can sway one way or the other. The ideal is this beautiful place in the middle. So when you only rely on the book meanings, you can get into this state where you're like, oh, I hope I've got it right. Like, oh, I better check, and this is something I say to my students is when you're doing a tarot reading, please just put the book away, like put it back on the shelf and just trust that you know already what all of those traditional meanings are. In between readings, go ahead, like read up, because there's so much interesting information about what are the symbolism, what do all the symbols mean, what are the stories of the cards, where are some of the origins of it, what are the expanded like concepts of these cards. All of that is really important information. And then there's a layer of the intuition. Now, that intuition is about really connecting in with what is personal and true for you. Like for me, I had a little toy lion when I was a kid, and that I would always have that little lion. Anytime I felt sick, my parents would come and bring it and go, here's lion, like here's your, like this is going to make you feel better. And so for me, the lion is about protection. It's about safety. It's about, feeling better. And so when I see the lion in the strength card, for example, I feel that sense of protection. Now, that's not something you'll find necessarily in a book, but it's intuitively true for me.
It could incite fear in maybe another person.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Because you might go, well, maybe I was at a circus one day and the lion got out of its cage.
Right.
That's it. And so it is this real blend of both. And if we go too far down the intuitive side, I think of kind of like the TikTok tarot stuff. I mean, I love that tarot is coming out into the mainstream in many ways, and we're all expressing it in different ways. That's awesome. And then there's sometimes where I see those videos, I'm like, Do you even
Whoa.
know what this card means? Like, do you know anything about this? It's just kind of completely made up. So it is a really nice balance between the both. And it's about trusting and knowing, like, I can actually integrate both. And when I read, even if I interpret, my intuition tells me something about that card that's different to what's in the book or what you might read on Biddy Tarot or anywhere else, like it's about trusting that and going, you know what, actually this is really important and relevant for me in this moment. This is adding that intuitive wisdom that I'm seeking here.
And I liked what you said about, you read about the cards, do your kind of quote unquote research about tarot, but put that book away when you're actually laying them down.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
that.
It's too tempting otherwise to go like, oh, pull a card. Oh my gosh, what does that mean? I don't know, because we then go into doubt myself, don't know the answer. Now I have to go outside of myself. But really, tarot, intuition, all of this is about bringing our energy back in and learning how to trust ourselves again. Because we've forgotten to do that over many years of, oppression and kind of like trying to push that away. But instead, now we're reclaiming that power.
That's a really good point about going within and reclaiming your own power. And that's why I think it's so important to learn the archetypes and the traditional meanings first, to have a solid grounding in the symbology, because that framework then allows you the freedom to let your intuition and your imagination run wild. Going with that, I had a moment back when I first started learning the cards that was very profound to me when I discovered that the way people were facing on a card, the directionality of where they were looking, could have a lot of meaning in the card itself. For example, if they're facing left, it meant that, they're dealing with the past or they're looking to the past. If they're facing forward, that means they're in the present moment. And if they're facing to the right, that means they're looking to the future or they're forward thinking. And that kind of blew my mind when I realized that symbology. Do you have any symbology like that in the cards that when you kind of uncovered it or when you started talking about it, it really felt profound to you or interesting?
Well, I love that idea of, yeah, which way is the character facing? And then to add to this is when you start pulling multiple cards, now what's happening is the queen facing towards the page or is she turning away? Is that page facing towards mama in a way, or is he trying to like escape and go off onto his like freedom journey over here, right? And it shows us so much more about the dynamics that might be at play, particularly if you're doing a relationship reading. So I find noticing these things in the cards can have really powerful and profound impacts. The other thing is that I'm always keeping my mind open with the tarot. I've pretty much read every single day for the last 25 years, right? And I would think oh, surely I would know everything there is to know now about tarot. But literally there's times, time after time I'll pick up a card, I've just, here we go, random, Two of Pentacles. And maybe for the first time I notice oh, these ships, actually there's one going one way and the other one's going the other way. Okay, what might that mean for me in this moment? Am I being pulled in different directions as I'm trying to juggle different priorities and so on? So I think just keeping that open mind to let your intuition guide you to what you need to see in that moment, and then what intuitive insight or wisdom that is going to give you. Because the neat thing that's happening here is that the symbolism and the pictures in the cards, it helps us to really bypass our conscious mind, the thinking part of our mind, and then drop into our subconscious, which is where more of those feelings and intuition is stored. But we can't necessarily access really easily because conscious mind wants to just sort of take over all of the time. It's it's logical. Mm-hmm. But what we're doing is we're helping to really drop into that more subconscious space so that we can bring it out of subconscious land into conscious awareness. And once it's conscious, that's when we can start to take action on things. So that's how it ends up being very powerful when we connect in on that level.
Love that. That's the beauty to me of different decks. Now, you don't know this, Brigit, but Shell is a little bit of a collector of tarot decks.
How many? Come on.
I'm glad you called me a collector and not an addict.
I'm getting politer. I'm trying to be nicer about it because I'm trying to help you, Shell.
How many you got?
Okay, I'm at the low numbers. I'm at about 200 and something.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Hey,
Yeah.
I'm on a Facebook group and there's people who have between 700 and 2,000. So I'm low ball. I'm
Wow.
small change here. I'm small
Yeah.
change.
And I think we all know that you're compensating by talking about people with bigger numbers. But I just want to say that while I don't have as many decks as Shell does, I do like having different decks around, in particular ones that aren't the standard Smith weight, because I do know that imagery so well. And it's really nice to be able to pull something different that has unique symbology that makes you think a little bit more about it. For example, right now I'm really into the Tarot of the Cosmic Seed by Lelania Simone. And I just pulled the Action of Wands, which is her version of the Knight of Wands. And this has a motorcycle on it, which is freaking cool. But that helps me to look at it differently. It really helps to get my intuition and my imagination going. Whereas if it was just a traditional image, I might be stuck in the same old as before. So for that reason, I like to have a couple different types of decks around.
But that kind of leads me to another question, Bridget. How do you suggest that folks, our listeners, people in general, turn these readings or turn these one card pulls into action?
Mm.
You can do a reading all day long and you can interpret the cards and get your meaning out of it. But how does that, how can you translate that into actual action? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, great question. Because I think oftentimes, if we get overly esoteric with the tarot, we go, oh, and look at this symbol and this means this and that. It's like, yeah, great. But like, what are you going to do about
Then
it?
what? Then what?
And, I have so much earth in my birth chart. I'm a Taurus. I think I have a Taurus moon and a Virgo rising and all of the things, right? And so I love practicality. I'm like, okay, what are we going to do with it? How do we ground this into reality? And even, if we're just to play with this Two of Pentacles that I drew earlier, what it can do is first, it almost like opens up some questions. And so we were just connecting in with like, oh, am I feeling pulled in different directions as I'm juggling different priorities? So I might go, okay, yeah, where am I feeling pulled in different directions? Am I experiencing some like big peaks and troughs, at the same time? Am I riding a high while I'm feeling a low? And that might just start to open up some like questions or feelings of like, okay, if that's the case, is there anything that I need to adjust? What do I need to change right now? And therefore, is there anything that I need to take action on? Maybe I'm okay actually with like just noticing, oh, I am experiencing peaks and troughs at the same time. That's interesting. Even just that awareness helps to go like, because we have those feelings in our body and like, oh, something doesn't feel right. Oh, I don't know what it is. And then we can pull a card like this and go, oh, maybe it's
Oh.
because I'm juggling. And yeah, I've got these, like, maybe there's competing priorities and those sorts of things. And even just that in itself may be enough to go, okay, I can move forward now,
Sometimes the insight itself can be the action.
Yeah, exactly. Just the awareness and realization. But then you can go, okay, you know what? I'm not enjoying this feeling. I don't like it. Okay, do I need to like choose one or the other? Do I need to start organizing myself in a certain way? Do I need to like change things? Get on top of things, create more order, or instead just be okay with it being a little bit chaotic and like wobbly and in flow. So the wonderful thing too, you might have noticed there, is that you have choice. You can choose what you want to do with this information. You can choose, if I'm feeling a bit like weird about something or off track, like I can just choose to accept that, or I could choose to do something different.
Used
I
to
always
change
have
it.
that choice. Yeah. And so one of the biggest misperceptions, like with tarot, is like, oh, what happens if you pull a bad card? What if it tells you a bad future? But I kind of scrap all of that, because I think it's
So do
more
we.
about, yeah, good. It's like, how do we open up choices so that we can consciously make these choices? We can be more intentional in what we do and how we approach our days. And the tarot is just simply bringing an awareness to these more subtle energies that we're experiencing. So then we can go, okay, now I know the lay of the land. What do I want to do here? The tarot is not going to tell you what to do. It's just going to show you some options and different paths.
And how you deal with it is completely up to you.
That's it. Yeah. And isn't that wonderful that we all have free will, that we all have the power to choose, which is so different to if the tarot is just telling you your future, it's like, well, here it is, take it or leave it. How disempowering is that? It's horrible, right?
Don't think anything is set in stone for sure. And so what I'm hearing here is that you should journal these pulls so that you can kind of work out your
You
thoughts
and your
and
journaling.
keep track of where they're going. Would you say
Yeah.
that's a good idea?
100%, 100%. And, the other thing is like, even in lieu of tarot, using journaling is actually a very similar process to what we experience with tarot. I often say to folks like who are working more in like a self-awareness, introspection space is ask the question that you want to know from the tarot. Like, I don't know, maybe what do I need to do to deepen my relationship, for example? Ask that question, and before you even pick up the tarot cards to get your answer, go and journal. Let like your conscious mind unload and go, okay, here's what I think I need to do to deepen my relationship. Right, 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 right. Awesome. Because that in itself is helping you to access your own intuition, to trust yourself. Then go, all right, tarot, what am I missing here? How else can I deepen this? What else am I not seeing? Because the tarot is awesome in helping to see the unseen. And so then you might, let's play again. Let's see. You might pull, interesting. The Hermit card. How can I deepen my relationship? Well, maybe some more introspection and journaling. It's actually the way forward. So just deepens that understanding.
Now, speaking of deepening understanding, one of the controversies that I see a lot online today, particularly in regards to tarot, is reversed cards. A lot of people say, oh, I don't read reversed cards. Some people say reversals are just the opposite of what upright means. And how do you feel about reversed cards, and do you use them?
Yeah, I love reversals, and that's really because I have a different way of working with reversals. I remember when I first started reading, and I'd pick up like an average, tarot card meaning book, and whenever it was the reversed meaning, it was horrible. It was like this doom and gloom. Oh, these terrible things are going to happen, because it is like a lot of people think it's just the opposite, which ends up usually being pretty unpleasant. And I remember going into like some tarot groups and communities, and I'm like, what do you do with reversals? Oh, yuck. Oh, we never read with reversals. They're so like, negative.
Way too
And
negative
then,
for me.
yeah, that's it. But I was speaking to a Canadian tarot reader. This is many, many years ago, James, and I'm just forgetting his last name, but he was wonderful. And it was him that actually suggested to me, have you ever tried looking at it from internalized energy? I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And so then I started to work with that and play with it and, really kind of explore it as a more lived experience. And what I realized was, our upright tarot cards is kind of like what we project out into the world. So again, like, the Hermit is like, you might be showing others that you are on your own path of introspection, right? This is what you're portraying to others. But when it's in the reversed position, it's more about keeping that private, personal. It's something that's happening as an internal process. Let's see, what else have we got? Like the Empress might be, you're putting out your motherly energy outwards. Maybe you're taking care of your kids or other people, and you're in that kind of nurturing phase. But then when it's reversed, well, this is actually about self-nurturing. It's about self-care, dropping into what you need instead of needing to worry about everybody else. So you see how this actually
I like that.
shifts and changes it. Yeah, it's nice,
I
huh?
freaking love that. I'm James, tarot reader from Canada. Thank you. That's something I hadn't thought of it that way before, and I really like that. That opens up a lot of possibilities. I'm intrigued. I'm gonna have to play with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's great.
We've had a couple listeners who have never touched tarot before in their lives. And so, for example, one of our listeners who just posted in our Facebook discussion group, her name is Cindy. And Cindy said that she is never touched tarot in her life, but she's very, very interested, but has no clue where to start. Like, doesn't know what a spread is, doesn't know anything about the cards. What would you suggest someone like Cindy do to start with tarot?
first get on over to biddytarot.com.
Agreed. I totally agree with that.
Because we really do. We have so many resources to support people throughout their whole journey, you know, from tarot card meetings to free trainings and ebooks and courses, even certification. But apart from that, you know, I think just get yourself a tarot deck. Again, this is our Biddy tarot deck, the one that I've been showing like through here, and it's based on the Rider-Waite deck, but it's kind of like I intentionally made it as a more simplified version because I do want to have a deck that's approachable for beginners so that you're not looking at these overly esoteric images going, what on earth is that, like, you know, swirly thing over there, or what does that mean?
And some decks are very busy to look at.
Yeah, or too abstract, you know, they're beautiful, but it's like, what's this wishy-washy thing over there? I don't even know what does that thing mean, right? So I recommend just getting a deck that you connect with, that's easy to interpret, that's probably more visual, like you can see that there's a story, like it's easier to go, that's what that is. And then just simply pull a card a day. This is it. You know, and you're only asking, like, what is it that I need to know today? It's not really like what's going to happen, is it a good day or a bad day, but just simply like, what do I need to know today? And then, you know, here we go, beautiful. We've got the Nine of Pentacles here. It's, you know, a lady dressed in these beautiful robes. She's in a garden surrounded by coins, and on her hand, she's got this bird, and she just looks luxurious and, you know, lovely. So if you were just looking at this, you don't, even without knowing anything about the traditional meanings, I just invite you to go, okay, what am I seeing in this picture? You know, okay, yeah, it's a lady. She's in a beautiful garden. She looks like she's wealthy. She's really appreciating the beauty of life. And then you might go, that's interesting. I wonder if I could get outside today and go to somewhere that I find really beautiful, and maybe I can appreciate that beauty, but also appreciate the beauty that's inside of me. And that's just like an invitation to experience the energy of this card. And you just do that each day, little by little. You start to build up this connection to the cards. You start to have a lived experience of the cards. You might even go online and start reading about what it means. But it's a much easier and more gentle way of experiencing tarot than perhaps how I started out, because I had kind of that school mentality. I thought, okay, if I want to master tarot, I've got to read every single book. I've got to memorize every single meaning. And I got so, overwhelmed. Because there's 78 cards. I'm like, oh my God.
Plus reversals.
And then this author says it means this thing, and this author says it means this thing, and I'm confused. Who's right?
Yeah. That's it. Yes, it can, like, if you look at it from that perspective, it feels overwhelming. But if you just think, okay, all I need to do is just pull a card, look at that imagery, see what speaks to me, how can I integrate that into my day? How can I experience that card? It is so much more enriching and more powerful. Now, of course, there's probably going to be a point where you go, oh my gosh, tarot is awesome. I love it. I want to learn more. And then, yes, you probably will start reading all of the books and learning all of the things. But there is actually a very gentle entry point into this that is available to everyone. And one last thing to add to this is, again, when I first started, I thought I had to be like really psychic, you know, psychically gifted. I have to speak to dead people, all of those things. I'm like, I'm not that person. Who am I ever going to be able to work with these cards? But what I've realized is that it's just really about activating your intuition, trusting it and going, yeah, I can do this, you know, and over time building it as if it's a muscle. So even if you're sitting there going like, sounds really interesting, but I'm just not intuitive enough, I bet you are, and I bet you'll become even more so just by looking at these pictures and the symbolism and working that into your life.
With tarot, I definitely follow a practice makes perfect theory. The more you play with it, the better you're going to get. The more you look at the cards, the easier they will be to interpret and to read. Practice makes perfect, in my opinion, with tarot. You gotta touch them and play with them to make that connection and create that relationship with the cards.
100%.
And tarot is for everyone. You don't have to be a witch. You don't have to be psychic. You don't have to speak to dead people. Pick them up and use them. And I love that you talked about picking up the card, even without knowing anything about it. And particularly with Pamela Coleman Smith's artistry and with all the depth of pictures that she put on there using a Smith-Waite or a Rider-Waite Smith, depending on how you want to call it, deck. those have such rich symbolism. It's an excellent place to start. Shell did not start there. I started with a Smith Waite copycat clone kind of back in the day, but it does help. And Shell is now back to that deck. The symbology in it is just so amazing that you can pick up a card and tell a story from pretty much any card you pick up in that deck. You know, it's some of them, like the Lenormand, the pip cards don't have any pictures. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that for someone who's just starting out, but definitely pictures that call to you. And Smith Waite is a fabulous place to start from. What deck did you start with, Brigit?
Yeah, I started with the Radiant Rider-Waite Smith deck actually because I wanted a traditional deck, but I liked the brighter colors because it's like, I don't know if you've seen the really original one. It's kind of like
Bland, bland.
yellow, red, and blue. Just, yeah, kind of meh. But even, after having worked with the Radiant Rider-Waite Smith deck for a long time, I was like, this is still feeling a little bit not really me, which is what it really did inspire us to create our Biddy Tarot deck, because I love a lot of like purples and teal and gold, and that's what we really integrated into the color scheme for our deck,
Now,
so it's a little bit easier on the eye.
was your deck, because in my vast collection, which is not an addiction, Layla, in my vast collection, I did at some point years ago obtain your deck, but mine is called the Everyday Tarot. Did you
Yeah.
change the name or is it a totally different deck?
Two different decks. So yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So Everyday Tarot came out in 2018 and it's super cute because it's like a little mini deck,
It's like a
great for
little hand
travel.
deck. Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
that same purple and gold motif.
Yeah, that's right. It's purple, gold, and white, and it kind of has more of like this 2D feel. Really, again, really great beginner deck that works really well in that respect. And then the Biddy Tarot deck is something that we have self-published and released last year, actually. And this one is more of like our purples and teals and blue and so on. And larger cards you might notice, like,
Okay, yep,
and they're
absolutely.
actually, like tarot cards are often quite rectangular and like long. And I always get frustrated with decks where I'm like, oh, I can't shuffle it, right? So I made this deck. I'm like, okay, I'm going to measure my hand, what my hand can hold. And we're going to do something between like a tarot card and oracle card. And so now I have this deck that perfectly fits my hand. I hope it fits other people's hands too. And it's, like it's big enough to be like, yeah, it's here. So bit of personalization there.
I
I'm
love
never
that.
gonna I'm always gonna think of that now. The way stuff sticks in my brain, every time I pick up your deck, I'm like, this is the size of Bridget's hand. And I'm just like, that's all I'm gonna be able to think about. But yeah, I do love that you thought of even that little bit, because some of my decks are huge. And I will often have someone I'm reading for say, oh, I can't shuffle this. They're so big. So having that is a small detail, but very nice one. I understand from your history that you did not start out with Biddy Tarot. You started out reading tarot for other people and working a mundane world job. How did you transition from reading tarot kind of on the side to it being more of your main gig?
Yeah, so my journey with tarot really did start like in my sort of late teens. And that was a time when I was actually studying at university. I was doing commerce degree, which is like business. And in between having to study accounting and economics, I was like, this is getting boring. So I thought, well, why don't I just take everything that I'm learning about tarot and I'll put it online? Now, this was back in like the late 1990s when the online space looked somewhat different to what it is now.
Absolutely.
But, I was like, I'll just start learning how to create a website and I'll just post whatever I'm learning. Maybe someone out there is going to enjoy it. So that was kind of the first, 10 years or so. The birth of Biddy Tarot was just this side project that I had to keep me interested and to have a creative outlet while I was studying at university. And then I went on to a corporate career. And I worked my way up that corporate ladder and, I'd come home and then I'd do a tarot reading online, right? Because I just had that like nice side hobby. But interestingly, by sort of around like 2010, I was starting to read more and more about how you can make an income online, or basically how you can take a passion and turn that into something that could make some money through ebooks and through offering readings and so on. So I started doing more and more of that until it started to grow, and to the point at which by 2012, my income from Biddy Tarot was actually at a similar level to what I was getting in corporate, because I'd just been building it up on the side. And I had that decision point of like, I could actually just leave corporate and go and do like this tarot stuff. How fun would that be? Even though it seemed, just like it seemed crazy. I was telling my mom and she's like, what are you doing? You're insane. But
You
I
just
knew,
finished university and you're throwing it all away.
I know. And I have a master's degree as well in human resource management. I'm like, what am I doing? Am I just throwing this away? Like, is this a silly decision? But my intuition said, do it anyway. What's so interesting, coming back to that master's degree in HR, is, at the peak point in around 2020, we actually had a team of 30 people. We now have about 15. But with 30 people, I'm like, oh, okay, this is how HR comes back into it, right?
Right? Everything we learned,
Utilizing those skills.
That's it. Yeah. So, 2012 was really that turning point for me of when I decided to commit full time to this and really, invest my time and energy into it. We now are serving like millions and millions of people every year. We do have an amazing team of 15 people who support the business. And just a full spectrum of courses, offerings, and certification. I don't really do any tarot readings anymore because I feel more called to helping more people, and being able to help and inspire people to like interpret their own tarot cards, because I think there's a lot of power in that as well, rather than going and getting the reading and being
Empowering
told.
them to do it themselves.
Yeah.
Your whole body of work, this whole website and all of your offerings very much are about personal empowerment, helping people to find their own insight and clarity in their lives. And even helping them a little with their mental health, moving forward, working through imposter syndrome and things like that. You even say on the website, quote, that you help with revolutionary collective change. So you really do help people change and grow. What are some ways that people can use tarot to achieve those things in their life, personal empowerment and growth?
Yeah. And I think that, tarot really helps us to reclaim that power. And if you think about it, this is a witch podcast, so here we go. It has been suppressed for like centuries, right? We've been pushed down. We've been told to ignore our intuition so that we can, be controlled, so that we can conform and, live in a more patriarchal society. But what I'm seeing now is that we are stepping into our power more. We're able to reclaim who we are and reclaim intuition. And we're no longer going to accept, intuition, that little that lovely little thing you do over there. It's like, no, damn it.
Right.
I'm going to be intuitive. This is my superpower. It's my birthright. And I think tarot is just one tool of many that is helping us to reconnect with who we are, to really remember what is actually important to us, instead of always looking outside of us or waiting to be told what to do next, or what we should believe, or what we should think or do, and so on. Isn't it amazing that we have these tools available to us to go within, to reflect, what is it that I want? What do I desire? What is my magic? How can I bring that out into the world? And so that to me is this like revolutionary change that we are creating in many, many ways, is helping people to reclaim their power, to step back in and go, yeah, this is who I am. No more trying to suppress it. No more like, and I read tarot on the side. Oh my God, it's like, damn it, I'm a tarot reader. Here we go,
No taboo about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And how much better does it feel? Because I used to be in the camp of like, when I was working in corporate, I'd be like, oh yeah, I read tarot. And yeah, but I work in corporate, they would be like, oh, it's okay. I'm still normal because I still do normal things.
Right.
But these days I'm like, oh, if you're not interested in tarot, oh, geez, poor you. I feel sorry for you because missing out. Too bad.
It
You know,
has a lot stepped into the mainstream. That's true.
Yeah.
it is ironic though that you say that because I am actually currently located in Salem, Massachusetts, which is like which city, USA here. And even here, I do a corporate day job. And I do get that, oh, you do that? You do tarot? You're into that witchcraft stuff? And I'm in Salem and I get that. Yeah,
Wow.
weird. It's just it's interesting. It's interesting.
We can be part of that change. This is the thing, and we have a choice. We could like go small and diminish and dim our light in that and go, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. All right. Well, I won't talk about tarot in my corporate job and whatever. Or we could go, all right, I'm going to be part of the change. I am going to bring tarot. I'm going to talk about it with confidence. I
All
am going
day,
to
every
like be
day,
the
all day,
advocate.
every
Yeah.
day.
And just own it, be the corporate witch, like step in, because that is where we get to make change. And I think that's, we can inspire people, we can change mindsets. And I think that really is our calling and our opportunity here is to really step in and change things.
I am glad to see, though, that there is such a resurgence, a big resurgence that we haven't seen in a good couple of decades since, I don't know, maybe mid late 90s.
Yeah, and I think that by bringing it in, I love your idea of bringing it into the corporate world. I no longer thankfully work in the corporate world, but when I did, bringing those cards into the office, most of the time, even people that had been slightly critical of it before were like,
They want a reading.
could you give me a reading? Would you pull a card for me? And then as soon as they experience that from someone that they know and are familiar with, the fear starts to fall. The stigmas start to kind of go away.
It's somehow all of a sudden okay because they work with you every day.
Yeah, and by bringing it in and sharing it with people, that can be a really great way to challenge that stigma. Now, one of the things we also run into when we're exposing tarot cards to people who might not otherwise see them in real life, we also run up against a lot of folklore, superstitions, so-called facts that get passed around about tarot that just aren't true. Have you ever run into anything like that?
No, nothing at all.
No.
So many things.
Yeah.
This is the thing. And I sometimes feel like how much of this has been introduced again to squash our power and to diminish ourselves, as particularly as intuitive women. There's so many things. Even just earlier this year, I don't know if you saw, there was a movie called Tarot.
We talked about
And
it.
yeah. Yeah, very interesting that is a horror movie where you pull a card and you drop dead, basically.
Not a fun message to send.
No. But there's a lot of this negative stigma still in the media, in TV shows. I'm always fascinated how tarot will be presented in TV shows. Every now and then I see it like, oh, awesome, they're actually using it in a really cool way. Majority of time, though, it's still presented as evil, mysterious,
Root of the problem.
Yeah, and I question that. I'm like, okay, well, why are we still presenting tarot in that way? Like, what is the underlying reason for that? And it's hard because then people come in going like, oh, I'm really scared to have a tarot reading. I'm worried it's going to make something bad happen. And so much of that is because of what is out in the media and what is presented around it. And yet we know that there is a very different way. We know that, pull the death card and someone's not going to die. Like,
Not at all.
And that, the devil card doesn't mean that you're like worshipping Satan, all of these things. So yeah, I think we just need to keep challenging these misperceptions, but also meeting people where they're at. When I have someone, come to me and go, oh, yeah, I'm really scared of tarot. I don't don't tell me bad things. I acknowledge that. I'm like, yeah, hey, I get it. I see why you're frightened. And you know why you're frightened is because you look on any TV show, any movie, and you're seeing a lot of bad things about tarot. Totally get it. And there's a different way. There's a different way of working with tarot. And then usually we can like pull a few cards, have this experience of, it's not scary, and then go from there. So I think, again, when we talk about like what's our role in terms of changing and shifting the mindset, it is meeting people where they're at, acknowledging that, society has made you, conditioned you to think that intuition or tarot or even, witchcraft or whatever it might be is like evil and what have you, but it's actually not. And, here's the different way.
Form your own opinion by using your intuition.
Yeah.
Full card on that
one.
That's really what it does. It helps you to unlock your own thoughts and to think your own thoughts, think your own thinks. That's great, Layla. Think your own thoughts and really kind of, move past that. When people start to think for themselves and to question and to look deeper into things, that's when some people start to get scared. They don't want you to look too deep. So it's definitely a great tool.
Introspection isn't always fun.
It's not, but it's good. It's good.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that just if we may, because I think this is what's interesting with tarot. Tarot is not like oracle cards. Oracle cards you pick up and you're like, oh, it's a dolphin. Yay. I'm going to be like, life is good. Or, oh, rainbows. Awesome. Like it's always like these beautiful, positive messages. And if you want your life to be that way, great. Have some oracle cards. I do love oracle cards. Probably why I don't
like oracle decks, honestly.
I do enjoy them. They definitely have their place. And then you've got tarot, and tarot gives you full spectrum, right? It's got the Tower card in there, which is about like chaos and destruction. You've got the Devil, about those because of codependencies and addictions to tarot decks that you might have in your life. But that's what I love about tarot, is it helps to show us the light and shade in our life. And life is not always like awesome and, pleasurable or easy. And we need to have these like bigger experiences that may feel uncomfortable so that we can then start to see maybe something new or appreciate something new. If you think about like the Tower card, chaos and destruction, but what that opens up to is the Star card, which follows, and that's all about that full authenticity and stripping back all the layers and finally stepping into who you really are and enjoying that whole process. So I think the wonderful thing about tarot is that it helps us to see all parts of our lives so that we are living in a more realistic view and we're embracing both the light and the shade that is present in life.
And that's kind of how I look at the difference between tarot and oracle, kind of that reality versus that fluffy love and sunshine and roses thing, and sometimes you need to look at the world through rose-colored glasses. I'm not saying I don't on occasion, but I kind of prefer that more realistic, just give it to me how it is. And that's why I prefer tarot.
Yeah.
Tarot's a lot like that really amazing friend that you've got that tells you exactly what you need to know and doesn't sugarcoat it. Like when Shell calls me up for a tarot reading or I call her up for a tarot reading.
I'm not an oracle.
You are definitely not a fluffy bunny oracle, that's for sure. Now, Brigit, I understand you also have a new book out that came out in the end of October.
Oh, well, we've just launched Intuitive Manifesting, the book. So that is now out in bookstores everywhere. And intuitive manifesting is all about like how we can create the life that we really desire, but coming from within. Instead of like looking on Instagram and going, oh, they've got this really cool thing, maybe I want that, oh, I don't have that, and getting into a bit of a tailspin. It's about, again, all coming back and trusting ourselves. What is it that is most in alignment for me? What is in my highest good? How can I follow and trust my intuition as I create my future intentionally? And inside of intuitive manifesting, it's got journal prompts, it's got visualizations, but of course it's also got tarot and how you can use tarot to really support and uplift, like elevate the whole manifestation process. So if you're being like lit up by this conversation today about intuition and tarot cards, you're going to love intuitive manifesting. So that is out now. And then of course at Biddy Tarot, so biddytarot.com, we've got lots and lots of different resources for tarot readers from the very beginning all the way through to those who are stepping into professional career or building a business or becoming certified tarot readers. It really is like a one-stop shop for folks who love tarot.
I'm going to interrupt you very quickly just because we were just talking about Agatha All Along. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this television show, but there's a television show about witches, and there is a tarot reader amongst them. And the most recent episode was all about tarot. It was absolutely beautiful. But throughout the series, they talk about these cards. And I think someone has been looking at your website, because every time I see these cards come up in the show, they are spot on. And the meanings very often correspond to meanings that you have from your website. So I think that some people in media are paying attention and are doing good things. So your website is not only just great for beginners, but even for advanced users and apparently for Hollywood too.
I'll take that. That's awesome. Yes. Yeah. Beautiful.
And again, like I said earlier, I do suggest hop on Brigit's email subscription list. It is actually awesome. I still get the emails. And I think that as much as you may downplay that piece of your website, that is a valuable nugget for people, is that email subscription list. I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. My pleasure.
Thank you so much for leaving the corporate world and helping all of us with your wonderful website, your books, and your very beautiful tarot decks. So thank you for that. And thank you for being here today, Bridget. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies. This has been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, just thanks for doing everything that you do as well, because that is part of the change, you know, being able to speak about more of this like intuition and women and, you know, how we're changing the world. I love it.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. That is a beautiful note to end this on. So thank you so much to Brigit Esselmont from Biddy Tarot for joining us today on Back on the Broomstick. As always, we freaking love talking about tarot, and that was an amazing conversation.
This was so awesome. I had a great time. So thank you, Brigit, and we adore you.
And thank you, listeners, for hanging out with all of us today. If you want more Back on the Broomstick, you can check out our website, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, all of them Back on the Broomstick. And we will see you next week. As always, be wise, be wicked,
be intuitive, and keep it witchy.